Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and this is the Not So Serious Keto video podcast. And unlike some of the more recent podcasts or vlogs that I've done, this one is going to be a little bit more keto than some of those others. It's been sort of a weird time for me this past month between the surgery that I had and, talking about men's health issues and things like that. And then the holidays got a little bit hectic, and then the passing of my father-in-law. It's been a weird time. And as a result, my focus hasn't been as, laser focused on keto as perhaps it should be. But things are going to get back to normal. I talked about this in Friday's video, the giveaway that I did. We're going to get back to doing recipes. Super excited. And, hey, let's get going. First off, earlier, it was last week, Wednesday, I think, January 5th, is National Keto Day. I didn't even know such a thing existed. If I did, I'm not sure what I would have done. If I would have done something different, maybe shifted the giveaway from Friday to Wednesday to celebrate National Keto Day. I don't know. To me, every day is Keto Day, but I'm sorry I didn't get you anything. Wow, I almost sounded Canadian there for a second. Sorry? I'm sorry I didn't get you anything. But then again, you didn't get me anything, so. But then again, we are really kind of giving each other something. I put out videos and you watch them, so it's sort of a mutual thing. There you go. On a few previous podcasts, I had done something that I wanted to be an ongoing segment on this show, which is looking at keto, and I would make the air quotes, but I'm holding my phone in one hand, so I'll just do it with one hand, keto products that are store-bought that perhaps on a little bit of additional label reading, not so keto. And I saw two examples at Costco, one of which I feel is probably not very keto, even though it's labeled that way, and another one that I think is a better alternative. So we have this Catalina Crunch cereal. This looks good. It kind of looks like Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal. And when I was a kid, probably my favorite cereals were number one, my favorite cereal was not a cereal. I would just put Oreos in a bowl and then cover them with milk until they got soggy, and then I would eat that. Amazing I didn't get diabetes. But after that, it was probably Captain Crunch Peanut Butter, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and then probably Lucky Charms. But this Catalina Crunch, here, got it right over here, this looks a lot like it's probably Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Let's take a look at the macros. 14 grams total carbohydrates in a half cup. Strikes me as kind of high. Now sure, there's 9 grams of dietary fiber. Not sure what's making that fiber up. So 5 net grams, maybe keto. Now let's take a look at the ingredients. We've got Catalina flour, which is pea protein, potato fiber, or I'm not sure about that, non-GMO corn fiber, chicory root fiber, guar gum. Then it has tapioca flour in it, high oleic sunflower oil, which, it's a seed oil, baking powder, natural flavors, sea salt, calcium carbonate, stevia extract, monk fruit. So I think if you're doing clean keto, if you're concerned about ingredients, this one's going to trigger some folks. Probably not something I'm going to put in my cart, and in fact, it wasn't something I put in my cart. Next, I saw this New Trail low-carb keto nut granola. It says on the front, well, it looks kind of tasty, doesn't it? It says on the front of the package, 3 grams of net carbs. Looking at the nutritional information, serving size 1/3 of a cup, total carbs 11 grams, dietary fiber 4 grams, sugar alcohol 4 grams. So you've got net 3, so far so good. Looking at the ingredients down at the bottom, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, coconut chips, almonds, pecans, erythritol, monk fruit extract, butter, blueberries, cinnamon, and salt. Pretty clean. So that did actually wind up in my cart. And who knows, maybe I'll do a review of it. But yeah, read those labels. Don't just, if you look at the front of the package, I actually had one viewer say, if she saw something that was labeled keto, her first thought is it's probably not keto. My thought is always be skeptical. And in fact, I'm going to do a whole segment next week on skepticism and how it relates to keto, how it relates to studies, how it relates to a lot of keto personalities and doctors and such like. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it. Now that I'm looking at this on my phone again, this may be my afternoon snack. I may throw a little almond milk or something onto this granola. So every year, when we get into January, various publications, be they magazines or websites, will list 20, 30, however many diets and rank them from best to worst. And that leads us to keto in the news. So in my Google News feed, which I'm going to open right this second, there was an article from insider.com that then links to U.S. News and World Report. So it says, keto has been named the worst diet of the year for healthy eating by U.S. News and World Report. Back in high school, my AP history teacher, his name was Jeff Gordon. This was way before the stock car racer or NASCAR racer, Jeff Gordon. But he had us all subscribe to U.S. News and World Report. And this is, not obviously the big magazine. The big ones are Time and Newsweek. And I also think that back in the 80s, magazines, news media were a lot less biased than they are now, either to the right or the left. And I don't know where U.S. News and World Report falls in all of that, because I don't think I've read it since high school. In fact, I don't know that I've seen it on a newsstand. It's not a particularly big magazine, but one thing that you can count on from them is every year they will rate keto as the worst possible diet. Let's cover some of the highlights. The keto diet works by cutting carbs almost entirely, prompting the body to enter a metabolic state called ketosis, in quotes. I don't know why you need to put that in quotes, in which it burns fat for energy instead of glucose from carbs, its preferred fuel source. So your body prefers carbs over fat? I don't know, maybe that's true now that we give it so many carbs. It's an easier to burn fuel. It's sort of a flash sort of fuel versus a slower burning fuel like diesel. But I don't know that your body prefers it necessarily. In fact, I think once you become fat adapted, your body far prefers fat. It runs more efficiently. I feel better. Probably you feel better too. But I'll continue. Dieters, of course, it's a diet. It's not a way of eating. Dieters eat less than 30 grams per day, often measured as net carbs or total carbohydrates minus the fiber. I think they're kind of mushing two different things there together. And consume hefty portions of dietary fats, which make up about 70% of the diet. Dieters who follow keto say low carb is a viable strategy for losing weight, boosting energy, and improving health. I would say that is true. Some evidence suggests it can be beneficial for some people, as it is effective as it is effective. Boy, I'm having a hard time with this. This may wind up in the blooper reel, or I'll just leave it in here. And is as effective as low fat for weight loss. But here's where it gets scary. But nutritional experts have expressed concern that keto and other diets that cut out food groups, such as the Dukan diet, I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it, and Whole30, can lead to excessive restrictions and nutritional imbalances, which are difficult to follow long term. So apparently these nutritional experts were never taught about gluconeogenesis and the fact that your body can actually produce carbs it needs if it needs them. Cardiologists, any sentence that begins with cardiologists, I'm immediately, like, my Scooby sense goes off. Cardiologists have warned against versions of keto that are heavy with saturated fats like red meat, butter, and bacon, all of which are linked to a higher risk of heart disease. I'm going to come back to that in just a second. Cutting carbs also restricts healthy, nutrient-dense foods, including fruits, starchy vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. Well, that's mostly true. I mean, we can eat berries in moderation. There are certain low glycemic fruits that we can consume. Eliminating a variety of foods can cause you to miss out on important nutrients, including vitamins, minerals, and fiber. Again, the fiber thing. We get plenty of fiber. I know I get plenty of fiber in my keto diet. I'm eating cruciferous vegetables. I'm eating green leafy vegetables. This misinformation really bothers me. Then we've got a quote from this registered dietitian, Robin Forrutin. She says, you really can't eat vegetables on a 10% carb diet. Any diet low in veggies is not one I'd recommend. So, false. I eat more vegetables since going keto than I ate pre-keto. I get a whole lot of green stuff in my diet, whether it's cruciferous vegetables or green leafy vegetables. I'm eating big salads. I don't know where they come up with this stuff and why they continue to propagate it. At the end, they say, even though certain people experience anecdotal benefits from keto, strict short-term diets raise the risk of yo-yo dieting or falling into periods of restriction and binging and can lead to disordered eating. Which is also why I don't like to refer to keto as a diet. It's a way of eating. I think if you're getting on keto as a diet, you're making a mistake. Get on to keto because it's gonna improve your life. But let's go back for a second to that whole saturated fat argument. Back in August of 2020, the Journal of American College of Cardiology published a summary of multiple studies that were done on saturated fatty acids. Now, you would think that the American College of Cardiology would be right up there saying, fat is bad, don't eat fat. So whenever I see a study, and I'll talk about this next week in my whole skeptics segment, whenever I see a study where something seems to disprove what the people that are funding or making the study is doing, grammatically this sounded way better in my brain. If the results differ from what you expect based on who is doing the study, to me that lends a little bit of credibility. Additionally, the amalgamation of all of these studies, it was on 400,000 individuals and humans, not mice. So that's a pretty substantial study. And I'm going to kind of read over this to you. This is interesting stuff. And I'm going to link to it down in the description below. So if you ever go to the doctor and the doctor is all upset that you're doing keto and your cholesterol seems out of whack and you need to get on a statin, you can link him or her to this article. The article reads as follows. The recommendation to limit dietary saturated fatty acid, SFA, intake has persisted despite mounting evidence to the contrary. Most recent meta-analysis of randomized trials and observational studies found no beneficial effects of reducing SFA intake on cardiovascular disease and total mortality, and instead found protective effects against stroke. Although SFAs increase low-density lipoprotein, LDL, cholesterol, in most individuals this is not due to increasing the levels of small, dense LDL particles, but rather the larger LDL particles, which are much less strongly related to CVD risk. So this is one of the things it seems that doctors don't understand. It's not just HDL and LDL. There are two types of LDL, and it's the small, dense LDL that is the bad stuff. Moving on. It is also apparent that the health effects of foods cannot be predicted by their content in any nutrient group without considering the overall macronutrient distribution. Whole-fat dairy, unprocessed meat, and dark chocolate are SFA-rich foods with a complex matrix that are not associated with increased risk of cardiovascular disease. The totality of available evidence does not support further limiting of the intake of such foods. That's some pretty powerful stuff, and it's amazing to me that here we are a year and a half later after this meta-analysis was published and people still continue to believe fat makes you fat, fat's gonna kill you. Seems not to be true. I mean, this is a big, big study. So, as I said, I will link to it down in the description below, and I encourage you to read the whole thing. It's a good study. And with that, we're going to take a brief little ad break. One of the things that I find when I'm making these podcasts is I feel like the people I want to direct certain messages to aren't the same audience that watches the podcast. Especially things like ingredient police and keto police. I think that those folks, very often, they just drop in, they jump out of the tall grass, dive in, make their little attack, and then go away. Which is why, for the most part, I don't even bother replying to them, because I don't recognize their name. I don't recognize them as a subscriber. And like I said, I think there are a group of people out there that get a great deal of satisfaction out of not tending to their own business, but rather tending to everybody else's. And a lot of these people tend to parrot what other people say. They don't go and do their own research. And like I said, I'm going to talk about ways to kind of look through different studies next week and how to approach things with sort of a skeptical eye to decide, are these studies, are they legit or not? Do they have some bias built into them? But I get a lot of people that throw out the, Dr. So-and-so says to me. And I'm not going to name any doctors. I'm just going to kind of group them all together and call them Dr. YouTube. I would also include in this certain, like television doctors as well, like a Dr. Oz or a Dr. Sanjay Gupta. So these are people that, first off, you need to be aware when we're talking about doctors, just because someone has the title doctor in their name doesn't necessarily mean that they're a good doctor or they're a smart doctor. There's a joke that goes, what do you call the person who graduated lowest in their class in medical school? Doctor. You could also say that 50% of all doctors are below average, although that would assume a normal distribution. For those of you who are statistics geeks, probably the proper thing to say is half of all doctors fall below the median skill level of the population of doctors. Sorry, I used to teach statistics. But just because you've got doctor in your title doesn't necessarily mean you are an expert on, say, nutrition, for example. I mean, doctors have different specializations. There are cardiologists, there are general practitioners, there are chiropractors, there are doctors of anthropology, there's Dr. Dre. I wouldn't necessarily let Dr. Dre do any sort of physical examination on me just because he's got the title doctor in his name. But what I want people to start thinking about is that these doctors, and I like a lot of them, I think a lot of them provide great information to the community. But we also need to be aware that all of them are content creators. They are creating content and they get paid based on creating content. And one of the ways to get people to watch your videos is to sometimes be provocative. And it seems like what a lot of people tend to gravitate towards is those videos that tell you what you can't do. Don't do this. You can't eat this. Well, this is why this is poison, and so forth. And none of these YouTube doctors or YouTube doctor wannabes, because there's some of those out there as well, have access to information that you don't have. So when somebody says, oh, you shouldn't eat this, go out and Google it. Get out onto Healthline or, what's the other one? It's like National Institute of Health. They will summarize all manner of different studies and will tell you, is this something that is safe? Is it not safe? Was it tested on humans? Was it tested on mice? What was the size of the study? And one of the things that you'll find is that none of them tend to be especially conclusive. They all include the word may. It may do this at certain doses. I've done before the topic, the dose equals the poison, or the dose makes the poison, which is basically paraphrased from Paracelsus, who said all things are poison, and there is nothing without poison. It is the dose that makes it so. I'm pretty sure that's the quote. But you can go out onto YouTube, click in the search bar, click the name of your favorite YouTube doctor or other YouTube personality that gives advice on keto and nutrition. Just type their name and then type a given food. There is one that I typed the name of this doctor and then I typed water. I kid you not, there were 6 videos by this doctor talking about, is water healthy? Is water bad for you? Don't do this with water. The big water myth. It's like I said, it's content creation. If they're churning out videos constantly, they need to have topics. And as I said, sometimes those topics are going to be a little bit clickbaity. They may be a little bit provocative. All I'm asking is before you go and quote any one of these doctors or other YouTube personalities and say, so-and-so says, think for yourself. Do a little bit of homework. So-and-so may be right. That thing may be bad for you in small doses or in big doses. Maybe we should avoid it. But a compelling argument is not just Dr. YouTube says. So just keep that in mind is what I would recommend. I know it's easy because there's so much information and some disinformation out there to figure out what's right, what's not, what should I eat, what shouldn't I eat. But ultimately, that also is your decision for you, not your decision for me or for any of the rest of us. So, how's that? We cool with that? Awesome. The final and very brief topic that I would like to cover on the subject of keto, because it seems like every couple of weeks I will get some comment related to net carbs and sort of a misunderstanding of them. People will say something either to the effect of, companies add fiber to decrease carbs. And the other thing that they might say is, and this happens because of rounding errors, I've seen some packages where total fiber is greater than total carbs by a little bit. I think in some instances that might be the way that they're labeled in Europe, but I think in other instances it could just be rounding. So people say, well, I'll just eat this and it will cancel out other carbs that I eat. You cannot cancel out carbs with additional fiber. So imagine this. If I had 5 grams of sugar, so it's just pure carbs, there's no fiber in it, it's 5 total grams, it's 5 net grams. And then I take 5 grams of Metamucil, I'm assuming that's pure fiber. That's also 5 grams of carbohydrates. It's all fiber, but the 5 total and the 5 fiber cancel each other out. It's a net zero. I can't just add fiber to sugar and make sugar go away. So as you're calculating macros and as you're thinking about macros, or as you're thinking about products, keto products, and you're looking at it, you can't add fiber to subtract carbs. And if anybody disagrees with me on that and can prove me wrong, I'm open-minded, but I don't think you can. So just be aware, fiber also is carbs. And that's it. I hope I didn't come off as preachy during the second half of this video. It's just, when you get so many comments on a daily basis, you're going to get certain ones that come up repeatedly and then they kind of stick in your brain. So that's why I brought them up. That's it for this podcast, though. So thanks for watching.